Hey guys, welcome to the fourth episode of our BANFF podcast. Today we have a very inspiring person. I met him at work doing Sulphur in Sulphur Mountain. He was running up it, and I was really interested in what he does and how he's inspired people. Looked him up, and he's famous. Some people would say. But yeah, welcome, Colin. Um, yeah, can't wait for this.
Thanks,
Thank you for
Jack.
coming on.
Nice to meet you.
Have a seat. Have a seat. So, let us know all about yourself. Who is Colin Harris? And take me outside. Is a
Yeah, it's always
whole.
hard to define yourself in a few short sentences,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've lived in Banff for about 11 years now,
Yeah.
and yeah, I wear a few hats. I work in town. I run a nonprofit, Take Me Outside, which we'll chat a little bit about
Yeah.
more, and I'm also in school right now
Oh, perfect.
at University of Calgary.
Doing
So
what? What are you
doing
studying?
a PhD in educational
Oh,
research.
wow.
So
Very
a few
nice.
things on the go, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think the main stuff that we might talk about today revolves around Take Me Outside, and
Yeah.
it's a nonprofit that I started about 13 years ago,
Okay.
and yeah, it's sort of a labor of love that has often happened off the side of my desk, but
Oh, nice.
it's growing, and
Mm.
yeah, we're trying to do some good work across the
It's
country.
definitely growing 100%. So I was researching you, and there's like you have loads of employees, loads of things you're doing. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what is Take Me Outside? So what was your goal with it? What was the whole, like, why did you start it, kind of thing?
You know what? It was kind of a combination. Like I had this lifelong personal dream of wanting to run across Canada,
Mm.
and but then I wanted to do it for a reason. And I
Mm-hmm.
had worked in sort of the field of outdoor education, sort of teaching students various outdoor skills and
Mm.
just bringing them up into like a more nature-oriented place
Yeah.
from the city, and just having them exposed to like being outside,
Mm.
enjoying things like canoeing and kayaking and cross-country skiing and snowshoeing.
Outdoor stuff,
Exactly.
outdoor activities.
And but there was growing research around how much time kids were starting to spend in front of screens,
Mm.
and how that was impacting, at that time, it was how much that was impacting their physical health.
Yeah.
And so I kind of married uh, that personal dream of wanting to run across the country with starting the nonprofit.
Mm.
And so that's what I did. And as I ran across the country, I went into schools
Mm.
and talked to kids about spending less time in front of screens and
Oh,
more time
incredible.
outside.
Yeah, because that is a big thing. Because I don't know about you. I mean, back in my childhood, I was outdoors climbing trees and doing everything. And then, you see kids today all on the iPads,
Yeah.
and I just look at them. And it's like, just put the iPad down and look up.
Yeah, I think that it's such a complicated conversation,
Mm.
because I think it's easy to, and I've been in that position too, where I grew up differently. I grew up without that technology.
Mm.
We live in a digital age. That's fine. There's so
Yeah.
many good things about the internet and about
Agreed.
like the technology that we have access to.
Mm.
But yeah, I think the thing that we forget sometimes, especially with kids, is like how addictive that technology can be.
Oh yeah,
And
100%.
so it's not, and even adults too. Like I have my fair share of times where I fall into that trap of just like
YouTube.
constantly scrolling
Yeah.
on my phone.
Yeah.
Um, but these apps and these algorithms are designed to keep you hooked.
Mm.
And so it feels a little bit more complicated than like just put the phone down.
Yeah.
Um, so but I think the work that we're trying to do, Take Me Outside, really, it's kind of twofold. It started off with this idea of spending less time in front of screens and more time outside.
Yeah.
And at the essence, there's still like a good piece of that. But we found like our audience through was primarily teachers
Mm.
in schools.
Yeah.
And so we've really focused on the last 5, 6, 7 years on what learning can look like outside of the classroom.
Mm.
So we know that like research will tell us that more kids are not only learning inside of a classroom, but they're learning inside of a classroom with all these screen-based digital devices.
Yeah.
And there's a time and a place for that. But we're trying to say, hey, are there opportunities for students to learn outside? And so that sort of niche audience is within the education system.
Yeah.
But then I think our broader message still really is like trying to find ways to balance that screen time and that time outside. And it's not to pit one against the other.
Yeah.
It's really, it really is trying to find balance. And like, you know, I think the average teenager, well, the average adult, because maybe it's mostly adults listening to your podcast and what you're doing. You know, the average adult who owns an iPhone is spending 3 to 4 hours a day on their phone alone, let alone other laptop use and
TVs,
TV and etc. And again, none of that is bad. Like, we live in an age where we can learn so much from the internet. You know, we've got these mega computers in our pockets, but what is that balance, and what are we missing by all the time that we're spending in front of you know, screens?
Yeah, it's definitely a. Do you think that it needs to be solved in a way, as in like with the screen time and being outside? Do you personally, would you rather be outside, or would you rather sit in and
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there's you know, I know we're going to talk a little bit about like mental health. I know my mental health is dealt with better when I spend time outside, especially when I spend time outside being active. And you know, I think I always say, like, I can scroll through my phone for half an hour, and 9 times out of 10, I'll regret scrolling through my phone for half an hour.
Do you look up and be like, oh, just wasted about 2 hours?
Yeah. But if I go out, any time I spend outside, whether it's going for a walk with my dog, hiking up Sulphur,
there's no time limit,
going for a bike ride, even if it's in horrible weather, there's never any regret in doing it. You come back in and you feel better about yourself.
Oh, 100%. So I picked up on one thing there with your run. This is back a little bit. So the run that you did you do it from one end to the other?
Yeah.
In Canada?
Yeah, in Canada. I mean, a lot of people around the world know the name Terry Fox. He was sort of this iconic Canadian who did his Marathon of Hope to raise money and awareness for cancer.
Yeah.
And anyone who, he did this back in the 70s, or sorry, early 80s, and he ran from East Coast to West Coast. And so anyone, if you're biking across the country, typically you go from west to east because you have usually a tailwind. But running is a little bit slower, and don't get me wrong, the headwind at sometimes, especially through the prairies, wasn't that fun. But yeah, followed Terry Fox's route going from east to west. So started in St. John's, Newfoundland, and went to Victoria, BC.
Wow, that's incredible, because that's a mental game in itself.
Like, yeah, it's
tell us about that, because obviously with our audience, it's mental health.
Yeah.
And that's a big mental game. What was it? 7,600 kilometers? I wrote it down.
7,600 kilometers.
That's 4,600 miles, people. For the people in the UK, 4,600 miles. That's so impressive, Colin.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think the physical body is way more resilient than we give it credit for. I should say, like, I had run previously, but I'm not some elite runner. You know,
not David Goggins.
No, exactly. You know, it was just sheer determination of wanting to, like, fulfill this lifelong dream.
Yeah.
So, but the body's way more resilient than we give it credit for. I had a couple injuries. Obviously, I trained for it for like a good year, and I had a base of running behind me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I would say 30% of that journey across the country was physical and 70% was mental.
Oh, 100%.
And so it was just tough day after day trying to wake up, especially
Mm.
through those winter months. I started in January, which maybe wasn't the brightest idea
Yeah,
in
middle of
Canada,
winter.
but I wanted to visit as many schools as I could.
Mm. Sorry, so how long did you do it?
It took 9 months.
9 months.
Yeah.
Wow. And
So
you just went to school, stayed in the hotel, went to
no, had a
or
really horrible RV that we bought as like a sort of support vehicle.
brilliant.
So I had a friend join me for the first 5 months, and we would just us and our two dogs would sleep in the RV at night in whatever spot we could find, whether
Yeah,
it's Walmart parking lot
that's incredible.
or whatever. And yeah, typically it would be sort of running 5 days a week, 40 to 50 kilometers each day. And then on days off or on days where I would finish early, it would be
Mm,
going into a school and chatting with students.
that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
as you said, so how did you feel when it's like minus like 40, 45 and you're running and did your like legs like seize up a little bit or
You know what? For whatever reason, I mean, I was born in December, and I
mm,
think my mom claims, those early months in the winter months
mm,
helped make me maybe a little bit more
tough?
tough.
Yeah.
So I've never minded running in the winter.
Mm,
Actually, I probably prefer running in the cold than I do running in like the intense heat.
why?
I think it's just easier on your body. I mean,
Mm,
the heat can really deplete you physically.
yeah.
The cold, you just have to stay warm.
Mm,
But yeah, it was, definitely challenges running along the side of the Trans-Canada Highway,
mm,
for months on end in the elements. But at the end of the day, I think there were only a few bad weather days where
yeah.
I couldn't run because of snowstorms.
Mm.
But yeah, overall, it was, I don't know, I wouldn't do it again.
You wouldn't do it
But,
again.
once you fulfill that dream, you
It's
move on
done.
to other
Yeah.
dreams.
Yeah, fair enough. So just following from the cold, you said you like the cold. Do you do cold plunges
Uh,
or
I
ice baths or
Yeah, I did. I'm not running as much these days
yeah.
anymore, but yeah, even when I was doing the running, whenever I would find sort of a lake or any cold water,
Mm,
I would go plunge the legs in there.
yeah.
And yeah, I'm not, sometimes there's trends, but
Mm.
within sport, and I get that. But it sounds like some of that cold water immersion really can be beneficial for the legs. I
Oh,
certainly have
100%.
experienced it for me.
Yeah, because I saw Chris Hemsworth his documentary Limitless.
Yeah.
Go and check it out, people, if you want to. But he was saying if you have 30-second cold shower, like the last 30 seconds of your shower was cold,
Yeah.
it expands your life. Just in general, it just makes you feel a lot better.
Really, I
Makes you
haven't
feel
not heard.
more
So are you doing
focused.
that?
Yeah, I am. I've got to a minute now, and
Okay.
yeah, go me.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's lead on to so just as a entrepreneur myself, and you are an entrepreneur, and as a whole, really. I just wanted to, what advice would you give me and like young entrepreneurs coming up? What would you give advice to us? It's a hard
It
question,
is a hard
but
question, and I feel like I don't want the answer to sound judgy. Like I think it's a balance because
mm,
the world we live in, you've got to use social media, but it
100%.
feels like a lot of what people are posting on social media is so curated,
Mm,
and it's really about. I think sometimes what I see is that entrepreneurs at any age, it doesn't matter young or old, are they make it a lot about themselves.
yeah,
Uh,
especially the influencers.
yeah, and they say that they're trying to inspire others,
Mm,
but often it feels like, are you really trying to inspire others, or are you just trying to get more followers
yeah, true.
and you're
More
trying to
money.
make a living,
Yeah,
et cetera, et cetera? Which at the end of the day, I get it. We all need to make,
money.
money and put a roof over our head and feed
Yeah.
ourselves. But I think, yeah, when I was I think it was just the way my parents taught me, and then there were some like key moments in life where, and it's a cliche question, but I still think it's really important, this question of like, what are you going to do to help make the world a better place? And I think talking about mental health, for sure, like we're storytelling creatures, so I think telling our own stories is an important piece of it.
100%.
But I think, as an example, what you're doing is like in this conversation today, you're not making it about you.
Nope.
You're trying to, tell your audience about someone else's story, and I get a chance to share a bit of my story.
Exactly.
And I think, trying to do things that, like talking about mental health, that will make the world a better place. Because that mental health and that emotional health is such a huge issue these days. And there's so many different ways to deal with it, and I think it's contextual in terms of people doing what works best for them. But I think one of the reasons we connected and started chatting was just because, for me, hiking up sulfur 3 days a week, that's my way of
not
dealing.
hiking, people, running.
Well, it depends. As I get older, it feels like I'm more walking. But that's my way of dealing with my mental health and trying to keep it healthy. But for other people, they're gonna deal with it in different ways. So I would never subscribe anything specific. And it's tough to like talk about mental health, as a general. It's hard to talk about it generally because it is so specific to that individual. But I think, both of us would agree that time you spend outside can be really beneficial for your mental health.
100%. Especially, I read something. It's like if you look at the mountains, it's therapeutic for you.
Yeah.
Because like you look around, you're like, wow, like you just looking at every rock, and it just your mental health like calms down a little bit. And just if people have anxiety or anything like that, you can like look at the mountains, look where you are, look where you're like outside. You're like, it's not bad. Like it's a good place to be.
And that's the thing. Like it doesn't, we're fortunate to live here. But it doesn't have to be the mountains. Like there's even research that shows that just even looking at pictures of nature can help lower some of those stress levels. So obviously going for a walk outside, like it's incremental. So, at the very least, sort of looking at some pictures of nature helps somewhat. But even if you're living in a city or somewhere urban and going for a walk around your neighborhood, that still does something beneficial for your brain, for your body, for your health.
100%, 100%. Well, to finish it off, I just want to say your top 3 role models. So, if in your life, who would you say is the top 3 role models? Who's inspired you? Because I know you've inspired a lot of people, but who's inspired you?
Man, this is a really tough question.
Yeah, sorry, I put you on the spot a little bit.
Well, number one, this is gonna sound cheesy and corny, but they're just really important people in my life. Number one is gonna be my dad. Number 2 is gonna be my mom. I think just like having those parents as role models, but they've moved beyond. Like I'm a little bit older now, so they're still my parents, but they're also best friends, and they've also been really sort of important role models in my life.
Are they proud of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've always been supportive. I mean, when I told them I wanted to run across the country, they were, I think my mom had a few question marks as to whether that was really a good idea or, but at the end of the day, I think their famous line at a few points growing up was, we may not always agree with your decisions, but please know that we'll love you and support you. And I think as a parent, to be able to put aside the fact that, your child might make decisions that you don't agree with,
Yeah,
but still really love and support your kid. You know, that
means
goes a
a lot,
long
doesn't it?
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And then third person, oh man,
Go out on a limb.
I mean, I think, yeah, someone who's had an impact would be, yeah, I think if I'm going to relate it to mental health, it's actually one of my good friends in town, Corey, who is actually the mayor here.
Oh, wow.
And been friends for a long time. And
Yeah.
I think I really admire the way that you know, she's the mayor and she's been on council. She gets a lot of criticism.
Yeah.
But the way that she deals with it, I feel like often I get really oversensitive about what people say to me or what people think of me.
Yeah.
And it's not to say she doesn't do that, but I think she's a model for sort of really being able to listen genuinely to people. And even if they don't like what she's saying or they disagree with what she's saying, she still treats them with respect.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's something to strive for.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, people, that is possibly one of the best podcasts I've done. Colin's book, Take Me Outside, is out on Amazon, is it?
Yeah.
Is it out on everywhere?
Yeah, it's local bookstores, Indigo chapters in Canada, Amazon. Yeah.
Lovely stuff. So yeah, thank you, Colin.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Yeah, so Rarity Found People is everywhere, as we say. Spotify, YouTube, we talk about social media. Spotify, YouTube, and if you want to check out our merch, it's all on our website as usual. Yeah, thank you guys, and stay positive.